Hey, Emma,
Yes, Bound.
what do you call it when you're watching a play or something like that and somebody makes a really fantastic and impressive way off the stage?
I don't know. What do you call it?
You say, dang, the exit 8. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your 15-year-old wannabe dragon dude, Madelyn.
I'm your confident businessman on his way to work, host Emma.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's show. This week we're talking about Lunar, the Silver Star, and the Exit 8. Two games that have so much in common.
They do.
Just tons of overlap here.
You don't know. The guy in the Exit 8 could be on his way to find a dragon.
That would be pretty cool. I hope they reveal that when the creator makes a secret third one.
He said he's not gonna, so...
He's said he's not, so we'll see. But those are the games. An old game, a new game, and as usual, we must start with the old.
Yes.
So our old game this week is Lunar, the Silver Star. It's a role-playing game from Game Arts in association with Studio Alex, which is just a subsidiary of Game Arts that they made for this game, that came out for the Mega CD, or the Sega CD, if you're in Japan, aka the Genesis CD add-on thing. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It came out in Japan in 1992, and then was localized by Working Games.
Working Design.
Working Design, thank you. And released in the US and North America in 1993.
Yeah. I don't know the last time... I guess we've talked about Genesis games, but I don't remember talking about one that was specifically for the Sega CD drive, really.
It wasn't the most successful thing.
No. Lunar was their big hit.
It was the killer app
yes,
for the Mega CD.
Was a console seller.
Yeah.
So, genuinely a pretty big deal when it came out and throughout its early history.
So Lunar the Silver Star, it's a fantasy RPG, right? So although a bunch of the interviews with the devs suggest, they really wanted to lean into story and storytelling, right? That's leaning into story and storytelling for a 90s fantasy RPG. I don't mean to undersell, there's a fun story here. I just mean it's a fantasy RPG story.
Sure. I think that there are interesting elements that precede more famous RPGs that came out in the same decade that perhaps drew inspiration.
Certainly. I just say that as a preface of, as we all know, narrative was not invented until 2013.
Yes.
So, we're 20 years before the true invention of narrative in games.
Of course.
Anyway, in this game, you play as the protagonist, Alex. I'm sure that is not... Well, maybe it is. They call it Studio Alex. Most of them have different names in English.
I think it's... Yeah.
But Alex is 15 years old. He lives on the planet Lunar. And Lunar is a planet that orbits the blue star, so sort of a Earth and Moon parallel. And humanity used to live on the blue star, but then the goddess Athena... Remember our Greek games episode, our Greek mythology episode? Here she is, Athena. She took humanity after an apocalyptic event and moved them to Lunar and set up some dragons to protect the elements there.
As Athena does.
Right, dragons a notable part of Greek mythology.
Athena's not even Artemis is the goddess of the moon, right?
That's right.
But Athena's Athena's the goddess, so I get it.
Yeah. Wisdom.
Yeah.
Athena.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, humanity lives on Lunar now, relatively happily. And alongside the dragons, we've got heroes called Dragon Masters. But many of the big Dragon Masters have disappeared, including the Dragon Master Dine. And that's kind of bad, because they're heroes. Anyway, Alex wants to become a Dragon Master. He doesn't talk, though, which to me seems like it might be a problem for a hero.
I believe he doesn't talk in the original release and talks more in re-releases, is the impression that I got.
To be clear, this game has been remade like 4 times.
Yeah.
Not recently, but 4
Somewhat
times.
Somewhat recently. There was one for... Was the PS3 one a remake of this also?
I think so.
So that's, that's semi.
Sure, I don't mean to say not.
It would still fall in the old games, I'm pretty sure, but semi.
yeah. Remake still falls firmly in old game eligible category.
Yeah.
But it was remade, like 3 different times. So a lot of opportunities to play various versions of Lunar, the Silver Star. And I think it's still, you can get like a iOS version of it still, I think.
The PS3 one might just be the PS1 one through their emulator. So never mind.
There was a PSP one in 2009. I wasn't sure if
Yes.
that also came to PS3. That might be the most recent.
Yeah, I think that it is.
Anyway, you play as Alex. You've got a flying cat. You've got a sort of mysterious adopted sister. You've got a buddy.
Your childhood friend, Luna. Yes.
Yes. But when, imagine if someone was named, Ert. And
what?
they were, Luna on the planet of Lunar.
I get, yeah, fair enough.
Imagine my childhood friend, Ert.
I don't think, if I met someone named Ert, I don't think I would make the Earth connection immediately either, so fair enough.
It's not my fault that Earth doesn't shorten very well to, a mysterious name.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there might be more to Luna than there appears. But you all decide, hey, there's supposed to be a diamond in a cave, and we like diamonds. So let's go find it. And in that cave, there's not just a diamond, but there's a dragon named Quark. Which is just not a name that I would give to a dragon, but I didn't make the game. Not even thinking about the sort of physics applications of Quark. Just not the greatest dragon name.
If you consider the physics applications, though, pretty good.
But then it should be a tiny dragon.
Yeah, it's about realizing your potential, right?
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyway, Quark says, Alex, you seem like you'd be a good dragon master. Also, Luna, you seem a little familiar. Go out there and be a hero. And then some heroing ensues. You go to sell the diamond somewhere, you get looped into another quest, you meet some legendary heroes, you find some other friends, I think you meet a guy, Deadly Mel Dalkirk. What's his daughter's name? Jessica. Which I love. Love the energy of the dad has a really weird name, and the daughter's name is Jessica. Good stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And ultimately, you've got to defeat the evil sorcerer and save Luna.
Yeah, which you didn't get to that, but one of the things that happens in this game, and I think in some of the re-releases, they sort of change this plot element, but about a third of the way in the game, Luna is kidnapped by the evil sorcerer and is removed from your party for the rest of the game. Which may sound familiar to a certain gameplay element of a 1997 RPG. A little bit different, but that's just a tonal change. I still feel like maybe there's a little bit of that's cool there,
Yeah. And you might be thinking, but what are the odds they played this game? I've never heard of this game. But Lunar was a big seller in Japan.
Yeah. I mean, we said at the beginning it was a console pusher for the Sega Drive, the CD, whatever it's called.
Sega's Mega CD.
The
Sega
Mega
CD
CD
in Japan.
So, I mean, it really was a very popular game, and I think that Solar Star Story Complete, which came out like 1999?
I think 98.
98, was also very popular at the time.
Which is also, the Story Complete is a remake, and slightly expanded remake of this.
Yes.
They did also release a sequel a couple of years later, Lunar Eternal Blue, which came out in 1994. That one, though, is set 1,000 years in the future, which I feel like we don't do very much anymore. I feel like anytime we talk about sort of like a 90s RPG type game, it's like, and then they released another one that's set hundreds of years later.
Yeah.
And I think that trend in sequels is, I mean, of course, there's just fewer sequels that get released on any kind of a timely basis now anyway. But that trend of, let's do the same universe, but 1,000 years in the future, we don't do that much anymore.
Yes, their DS one, the latest release that was a new story, is also set 1,000 years before Silver Star. So they're only interested in moving in 1,000 year intervals, basically.
Yeah. As are we all, really.
We had one of these, or I had one of these, but it was definitely a portable system. But whether it was the GBA one, the DS one, or the PSP one is anyone's guess, because I don't remember it very
this,
clearly.
Which makes me suspect PSP.
I was thinking that maybe, I think it might have been the DS one that one of the dogs chewed on.
Oh. Well.
At some point. Because I remember having a DS cart that one of the dogs had chewed on, and it still worked. And I think that might have been Lunar. So I think we had the prequel one, maybe. I don't think I finished it. But in my defense, it had been chewed on.
It's a good defense.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a damning, they're like, oh, it's gotta be on CD. Meanwhile, Emma's like, I had a cartridge and a dog chewed on it and it was still fine.
Well, it's about the amount of data that it holds, not about the fragility of the thing.
But could a dog ever chew on a CD? No.
I did read in one sort of archived thing, what was this? Sega16.com by Sam Pettis, Sega CD, A Console Too Soon, that they did cut like a third of the game that they had planned before release, which was, I think, a trend of games around then as well.
Yeah.
Of not being able to fit everything that they wanted to fit onto their...
Do you think, the sort of meme of like, if I went back and I showed a medieval pilgrim, like, a DS, they'd have a heart attack? Do you think if you went back to these devs as they existed in 1991 and were like, here's the download size for Call of Duty, they would have a heart attack?
I don't know.
Like, what's a download?
I don't know. I mean, back in I don't think Lunar had multiple discs, but there were definitely a bunch of RPGs that had multiple discs to fit stuff, right? You would go to the end of a disc and then insert the next one to continue playing. So I don't know if it would be that shocking beyond just being like, oh, okay, like things have gotten bigger, but we still put things on 2 discs sometimes.
Fair enough. I think I read somewhere that it was, the dialogue files were 4 megabytes. And that was going to be a huge lift for the localization team.
Yeah. Well, Lunar is, I read a lot of comparisons to the Trails series in regards to how it treats NPC dialogue, in that it updates a lot.
Yeah.
In that, like, you don't just go to NPC and they're always saying the same thing throughout the entirety of the game as it normally is. But, like, as you continue to visit NPCs, they have their sort of own things going on in the background and will sometimes progress through their own arcs as you check in with them. Especially in I think the complete version, there's a lot of, like, you'll have, like, back and forths with the characters and the NPCs as well. So you'll have, like, full conversations going on when you go check on them. So it is definitely one that has a lot of text to go through. But has sort of what I felt like was like a mixed reaction to the localization, in that like the main story is pretty good, but there's like some very dated like humor and reference type stuff that the localization added to the NPC dialogue that hasn't aged great, essentially. But the working design was like very involved with the North American version of Lunar, including making gameplay changes. So the North American version is apparently a lot grindier and harder than the Japanese version because of suggested changes that they made. And they also added a sequence to the ending, a requirement that you have to do to sort of finish correctly, that isn't present in the Japanese version of the game.
If somebody did that now...
I know. It's just very interesting because it felt like it was very much like a partnership.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting to think about. Especially, you know, you look at... There's some stuff from that are held up very highly, stuff like Vagrant Story, etc. Right. But then, you know, a couple years later you get Final Fantasy VII, which has its pretty infamously messed up translation. So it's interesting to see the levels that you got around that time when it came to bring a game westward.
It was much more about, like, who is the individual dude doing this?
Yeah. Whereas this, I mean, Vic Ireland, I think, was... Yeah. Victor Ireland was the main guy in charge at working design, but it's still like a company.
Yeah.
It has more than one person working on it, essentially.
You know, this game I have to call out as being, like, pretty technically advanced for the time, although you wouldn't think that, thanks to being on the CD, right? Has some video, has some voice acting. But overall, the gameplay seemed to me to be pretty standard. You know, 2D map, turn-based combat, random enemies.
It has a little bit of placement, where you can move your characters around the battlefield. And also, you select, like, all the moves for a turn before they go off. As opposed to, you know, a traditional one will have you do one character at a time. Right. So there's a little bit of quirks in there that is a little different from just the standard. But yes, it is very straightforward.
It also seems to be pretty dead.
Yep.
Which, you know, look, I feel like a lot of games like Lunar have been seeing, like, we're re-releasing it for the Nintendo Switch. So it's not impossible.
Sure, yeah. What's one more remake, you know?
What is one more remake? I guess I did see that maybe the Silver Star Story Complete came to Android pretty recently.
I don't
potentially know. I don't know if this is just like a typo on the Wikipedia page. Nothing talks about this. It just showed that it did release for Android this year. So who knows what that means? Probably nothing.
I want to shout out, I read a really good retrospective and reflection on the complete version of Silver Star Story on EGM Now by Aidan Moher. That was a really interesting read. So if you're interested more in finding out about Lunar, I'd recommend checking that out.
I'm sure there are lots of people out there cheering for more Lunar, as there are with any of these old games that we talk about that haven't had a new release in 15 years.
I can't overstate it. It really was a good. Well, it sold very well. I think the Complete was like the third best-selling game that year or something under or like RPG under like Final Fantasy 8 or whatever.
Wouldn't have been 8, but yes, 6, 5.
The complete came out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
You're right.
So a lot of people played this game, and probably have a lot of nostalgia for it.
So come on, Sega, I guess. I don't know. I don't really even know who I'd be asking. Somebody make some more Lunar.
Well, shall we talk about the Exit 8?
I think we'd better. It is our new game after all.
Yeah.
So the Exit 8 is a 2023 walking simulator, although, gosh, I hope it doesn't simulate your walking. From Kotaku Create, which is, it's a one guy or one person. I don't think we know too much about Kotaku Create. Who basically you're walking around a probably Japanese subway station.
Well, yes, Japanese. It's in the letters are in Japanese, so it's a Japanese subway station.
And you're trying to get out. You're trying to get out. And
you're trying to get to your exit, which is Exit 8.
And even if this game didn't have anything beyond that, that would probably be challenging enough.
Persona 5 invented confusing Japanese metros,
It's true. This game is heavily inspired by that segment of Persona 5 before you get fast travel.
I don't feel like we had too much trouble when we were in Japan in the metro stations, to be honest.
I remember it being a little annoying.
Well, you didn't have to do anything, so you're not allowed to complain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about Persona 5. You're talking about real life.
I was talking about our experience
while
we were really there.
I was like, it was a little hard in Persona 5. Yes, no, we did not have that much trouble because Emma, you should hire Emma to plan your vacation. Basically.
Unfortunately, I think if or when we go back, we may have more trouble because apparently the JR Rail Pass is not as good anymore.
It's way more expensive now.
Yes, and also more of a hassle to get through onto the platform using it, apparently.
I think we're going to have to rely on hopefully I've retained some of what I supposedly learned Japanese in your, by then probably semi-fluent Japanese, to actually purchase things.
Anyway, in the Exit 8, you have to essentially look for anomalies. So you keep running through the same hallway as the same posters, the same doors, the same guy on his way to work, assumably, the same lights, the same signs, etc., etc. But at some points, there may be something slightly different in that area. And if you see something slightly different, you have to turn back around in order to progress up to the next exit. If you think there's nothing wrong, you progress forward to get up to the next exit. And if you make a mistake, either you think you see an anomaly and it's not there, or you miss an anomaly, you are set back to exit 0 and have to try again.
And that's it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty short game where I'm not quite so busy all the time. I probably would have played this one for the podcast. I still might play it before next week. Because it costs like $4. And it's a game that, depending on how good at it you are, you're gonna beat within an hour.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I just have to say, seeing some of the critical response be like, this game was great, but it doesn't have a lot of replayability. I'm like, shut up. Shut up. Like, how could that be a thing that you want from this game, really?
Yeah.
It's a $4 game for like an hour-long experience that you could probably go back and play once and still have a decent time with. There's more anomalies.
Yeah, for what it's worth, after you get to Exit 8, you can get set back in it, and there will be a new sign that will tell you how many anomalies you have not observed. So you can just keep playing until you've seen all the ones that they have for you, because there is a set number. It's not they're not like randomly generated anomalies. You'll see the same anomalies as everyone else will. And they won't repeat. Any that you've correctly identified as anomalies won't repeat until you have run out, essentially. So
I just
if you miss one, it will repeat.
Right.
But yeah.
I just felt like that's such a wrong-headed critique for this kind of game.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I obviously, as we've talked about on the show before, I'm not a big believer in replayability generally. Who has time for that? But I just feel like that kind of critique is meant for Apex Legends, or it's meant for Borderlands, or it's meant for, I don't know.
I don't know if you would call Apex Legends like replayability, but
well, like
I
desire
get what you
to
mean.
play it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a slightly different kind of replayability, but like the desire to want to do this multiple times. It's meant for a roguelike. It's not meant for this game that's like a 40-minute experience. Shut up. I pay that amount of money for a real subway experience. This game costs me what it takes to less than a round trip New York City subway experience.
Yeah. Costs less than a real ticket in DC too, I think.
Yeah, in DC, less than one way.
Yeah.
If you're coming from the suburbs anyway.
Yeah.
Peak hours.
Kotaku Create also released the Platform 8 relatively soon after this. That's set you on a train and is a little bit more intentionally scary than the Exit 8, I guess, would be. Like, they're both supposed to have, like, sort of horror vibes, right? But most of the anomalies in the Exit 8 are little things, with a couple of things you could consider, like, jump scares. Mm-hmm. I think most of the ones in the Platform 8 are more like jump scares or more, you know, scary on their face than just like the posters are getting bigger.
Yeah, the Exit 8 is definitely meant to be more just on the unsettling side of a horror game. If you think about how you would feel if you were actually in this situation, you might be freaked out. Yeah. Horror game rather than I'm peeing myself on stream.
To be fair, the Platform 8 is not that scary either.
I'm not suggesting that it is. But this game was a big success. Another one. Let's all go back and laugh at me being like, the one guy game, it's dead. Big success. This game was developed, this developer apparently worked at some other gaming company and was like very frustrated with the long development time and lack of progress and no releases there, and so developed this in less than a year. So hey, all you people out there, they're like, I want shorter games that cost less money or the devs are treated better, blah blah blah. Here it is. It sold like 30,000 copies in the first day. Now that it's come out on Switch and elsewhere, it's sold over 1 million, I think.
It's even on VR now.
I know, look, I know you're not a VR person. This is a great VR game.
Yeah. I mean, if I wouldn't get, the horror for me there would be that I would vomit.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't necessarily be intentional on the part of the game, I think. That's just me.
Yeah. So just a huge success. It's hard for me to pinpoint where the success of this game exactly came from. There was at least one article that I read that talked about how it's become very big on TikTok, because it's so bite-sized. It's very easy to clip for that kind of short-form content. Like, some speedruns of this game take like a minute. Although I don't know if that's still possible. The developer has patched some of that out, I think.
Yeah.
But became a real hit on TikTok. Obviously is a pretty natural game for a certain type of streamer.
Yes. Very, perfect catnip for the variety streamer.
Yeah. But still, it's hard for me to pinpoint, okay, sure, it's designed and intentionally or however you want to think about it, but it's designed to be a pretty obvious fit for content creators in those categories. But still, there have to be like 100 games that release every year that are that. And it's always hard to pinpoint, like, why did this one from this, like, random, like, Japanese developer break out?
People love the idea of being lost in a subway station.
Do they? I hate the idea.
Well, I mean love, like, you know, are fascinated by, enraptured by, whatever. That's really the vibe I got from a lot of, like, the preview content and, like, the reviews as well, is people are just like, yeah, I'll get stuck in a subway station, you know?
I mean, everybody loves a liminal space.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly.
So from that stance, I get it. But it's also gone through the whole people falling in love with an indie game cycle. The amount of fan art about the dude going to work.
Love the guy going to work.
Who doesn't love a guy? There are not enough guys going to work, so...
At least one of the reviews said that you need to find the anomaly before he, like, turns the corner. I'm not sure that's true.
He's a timer, to some extent.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's exactly when he turns the corner, because just from watching some stuff, it didn't seem to operate that way. But
I think it's before he exits, like, before he gets to the end.
I mean, when he gets to the end, he just sits there and looks at his phone.
But I think even if you find the anomaly after that, you won't progress.
Again, that did not seem to fit with my experience of watching people play, but maybe I misinterpreted something there, so.
That's what I read. It's that he's some kind of timer, and if he makes it, you don't get to go on, but I don't know. I'll report back if and when
He's in the platform 8, too. Just having a good time riding the subway.
He's chilling.
He's used to it.
Yeah. The developer says there's not going to be another one, which makes sense. Where would you go after that?
Yeah, he apparently made these partially taking a break from his own, or their own, personal, longer horror project called Strange Shadows, I think. So, now he is going back to working on that, now that he's taken his break and they've had their
I did think for
success.
Platform 8 it was funny. He put out a call, or the developer put out a call for advertisements for it, which I read at first. It was like to help with development, right? And I read that at first as like, okay, like, sure, that's a fun way to raise some money, right? Sell some ads to put up on the train. Nice. But it wasn't that. It was not paid ads. It was just that this person was like, it takes a long time to design fake ads. So why don't you send me your real ones so I don't have to do that?
Yeah.
Which, clever.
Yeah, there you
go. This game doesn't have a publisher, so I guess that this person just must be rich now.
They do have a publisher for the...
You're right, the console.
The console release. I don't know if it's... I don't think... Is the console release worldwide? All of it?
The Switch, I'm almost sure is.
Yeah, I think they made like a bundle version of these two that is not in the West right now. But I'm not sure. But Playism did publish it for some parts.
Yes, it just came to PlayStation this month, partially in response to the fact that because this game is so short and simple, right? Simple, complimentary. It immediately spawned a bunch of copycat games.
Yeah, of course. For what it's worth, I think that you can consider this like another step in like the PT domino chain.
Sure.
Because that is also about, you know, having different things happen to you as you go through a repeating hallway. So I think that you can see the influence, right? The wide-ranging after effects that remain from PT.
The developers also talked about being inspired by a Japanese horror game called I'm on Observation Duty, which is about looking at things through surveillance cameras. And also by, remember this one? 12 Minutes. Which,
I mean, another time loop game, right?
Certainly another time loop game.
It's not like this one has a narrative, so it's fine.
Phew. They're gonna reveal the passerby is your brother!
You can't flush everything down the toilet in the exit 8, which maybe is a mark against it. I don't know. Depends on your sensibilities.
It's a shame. It does sort of feel like at the end you should reach the bathroom, not a platform.
You're just trying to go to the bathroom the whole time.
I think it feels more that way, right? Like, if you're looking for a train platform, there'll be signs, you'll eventually find it. But if you're, like, out in public looking for a public restroom in a station or something, you'll never find it.
You can make a game about that.
Yeah, I can. Station poop.
Don't call it that.
Why not?
No, I think there's potential there. You have a time limit, you have to figure out how to get to the bathroom.
I think this could blow up on TikTok, I'm gonna be honest. I think variety streamers come calling. There have to be already 50 games about, like, trying to get to the bathroom. Guarantee it.
I don't know. I haven't heard of any, so they probably don't exist.
We do need people out there for Station Poop, working title, but also other games. The developer has suggested calling them Station 8 likes. That's boring. That's a boring way to refer to that. We need a better, like...
The 80s.
What?
The 80s.
Sure, there we go. That's better. I just feel like Metroidvania has set the standard too weird for us to decide that everything else is just going to be, like, game likes.
There was, like, a little argument I saw happening on Twitter that was like, why are you calling Castlevania Metroidvania? And it's like, what else are you supposed to call it?
Yeah. A Castleoid.
It is sort of inherently funny, right?
Yeah.
To call call Metroid or Castlevania a Metroidvania, but also, what else are you supposed to call it?
I know, especially when that word has lost all meaning.
Yeah.
Or become totally divorced from its original context.
Exit 8 is not a Metroidvania.
It's not.
Couldn't even make an argument, I don't think.
Could you make an argument that it's a roguelike, though? It might be.
Yeah, it does set you all the way back to the start if you make a mistake, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you're at, like, exit 7, if you don't see an anomaly, it will send you back all the way to exit 0. So, in a way, that is kind of roguelike-ish if you consider exit 0, like, your death state.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so
it
I
changes,
think you could make an argument
right?
there.
It's not the same every time.
Yeah.
It changes elements.
Spelunky, the exit 8, what's the difference?
No one's going to allow it to pass the Berlin test or whatever the thing was that we learned about in that episode. But roguelite for sure.
Yeah.
Standing by it.
What's your favorite anomaly?
My favorite anomaly?
Yeah. Or what anomaly do you think should be there if you didn't look at all the anomalies?
Yeah, I can't say that I looked at all of them. There should be a bathroom.
Yeah, right. There should just be a bathroom one of those times. The passerby goes into the bathroom.
Here's the real anomaly I want. This guy is not an anomaly. He is a staple. But at the West 4th subway station in New York City, there's a guy on the ramp down as you go to the downtown platform from the, like, south entrance, where he is always there drumming. He's not, like... Right. No offense to this man, who I feel a lot of affection towards. He's not a good drummer. He's not, like, doing a drumming performance. He's just drumming quarter notes.
Mm-hmm.
And he just sits there and he drums quarter notes, presumably for hours.
Practicing.
I guess. He's like an old guy, big beard. I'd like for him to be there.
Marking the ticking clock of your life, perhaps.
Yes, and maybe the anomaly is he starts to drum a different beat or something. I don't know.
That's fun.
Yeah. What about you?
I mean, the ones in the game, I like all the ones with the passerby because it's funny when he starts acting differently. I don't know. I don't have any notable metro stories either from Boston or DC, so I'd have to spend some more time in the train station to...
The passerby could have a dog in a bag?
Yeah. Be like, oh, my shoulder hurts as he walks by. That was my experience with that.
Yeah.
I immediately need a nap as soon as I round this corner.
Huh. No, if it was, if you could do the VR in a more immersive environment, you could do this would be more for Platform 8. But it'd be like you're walking through the train and you get the train where the air conditioner doesn't work. Like the sauna train.
Yeah.
It could only be for the VR version in a controlled environment, though, alas.
All right. Well, any last thoughts, or should we mash this up somehow? How do you make a classic 90s RPG that is also very simple and based on one location?
Well, I think you could do like I'll do the other way around first. The other way around first is just a Station 8 like that is, or sorry, Exit 8, Station 8. Yeah, Station 9, right? Station 5. What is the show?
What are you talking about? Oh, I don't know what the show's called.
Doesn't matter. Very easy to set something like this in a like grimy dungeon hallway instead of a like clean Japanese subway station, right? So you could do the same thing in a fantasy setting.
I do feel like the like true mashup is like the classic RPG Maker horror game.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think that if you took these two and put them together and, like, swirled them up, you would come out with something like, I don't know, Yume Nikki or something.
Yeah.
So,
so maybe not quite that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's my easy one, right? My easy one is like, okay, it's just a fantasy hallway instead of a, modern liminal space. Fine. But how do you set an RPG in, if not a subway station, a like very mundane and repetitive modern setting? It's a good question.
I mean, you could do something like in your office space type workspace RPG.
And what, the combat? Okay, here's a proposal. This is not really based on the Exit 8, except that it's like putting something in a somewhat tedious modern setting. It's like a fantasy RPG. It's an RPG, but the combat is you're at like a networking event or like a holiday party, right? And you have to, the combat is like making small talk with your coworkers, bosses, vendors, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make your way. I don't know exactly what the goal would be. This would have to be pretty short, but that's okay. The Exit 8.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it sounds like a pretty decent, like, short experience.
Yeah.
Which is, like, that's fine,
What's my final boss? Like, what's my goal in that situation? I mean, to get out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the goal is just to survive, to pass enough time until you can leave.
And there'd be like, we'd have to be careful. Someone's going to be like, oh, you're encouraging alcohol abuse. But it'd have to be like, you'd have items that you could use that could like help you short term, but might then make the game harder, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, if I have my gin and tonic, like this conversation becomes easier. But if I keep having them, I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Just like real life.
Or if you loosen your tie, like you might loosen your tie to like increase your HP. But if you run into your boss, that's going to be a damage debuff.
Yeah, okay. There's some fun. No, I like it. There's some fun stuff here.
People will tell you it's not replayable enough, though.
I think you could actually make this pretty replayable, at least in the same way that the Exit 8 is, right? Yeah. Where you can go and encounter conversations that you have missed in your first go round, right?
I'm trying to think of who would be like the rare to encounter enemy that's like a run ender. basically. Like, what would be the ultimate?
The Mr. X.
Yeah. Or, like, it's an RPG. So, here is the thing. It's an RPG, so it probably has to have, like, a final boss.
Yeah.
Which is not usually how it goes when you're trying to, like, slip out of an event, right? It's not like...
It's like, if there's, like, coat service. That's the final boss.
Yeah, but those people don't care about you.
The line to coat service is the final boss.
You're right. Or here's the final boss. You leave, but you discover upon exiting the building that you've left at the same time as like your least favorite coworker who doesn't realize that. And it's like either you have to take the subway with that person forever, like an extended sequence, or it's like they're like want to split a cab. That could be interesting because then the cabbie could be like a support character.
Yeah.
Could
be like your flying cat, the taxi driver.
You could probably do interesting things with like cell phone use in this too, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, do you have any buddy coworkers who you can call in as like
your summons?
Summon?
Yeah.
Or like, can you be like, Mom, call me? Say there's an emergency.
That was good. I like it. I like the solution here.
It's sorry. It's still probably not as good as station poop. But
I mean, what could beat that,
That's another thing you could use in this game. You'd be like, so sorry, I have to go to the bathroom. But if you do that, you have to go to the bathroom or you might risk running into someone worse.
I also think that if you go to the bathroom too many times, people will start asking you about it.
Yeah.
And that'll make difficult conversations more difficult.
Yeah. I would play this. I feel like for once, several good game ideas here. Well, Emma, do you have any final thoughts to add? Would you have a good title for my
No, Madelyn, I hate titling things.
I know. I just wonder if anything came to mind. Well, on that note, listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Have you played Lunar the Silver Star or the Exit 8, which I keep trying to call the Station 8, and that is not the name of the game? Did you like them? Have you encountered either of them on TikTok? Probably one more likely than the other, but what do I know? Maybe if we made the Lunar 8, that's not the name, Lunar the Silver Star, popular on TikTok, someone would make it again. Do you miss the days where to use the CD, you had to plug something in to a console? Should we go back to that era? Do you think you would rather live on the moon if Athena put you there and made it nice? If you have thoughts on this or anything else, if you've ever gotten lost in a subway station, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog, featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you should subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This and never miss an episode.
Talk This is a great podcast to listen to while you're lost in a subway station.
I agree.
Personally. Yeah.
Plenty of time for you to think about the way you would have mashed up the game that is so much smarter than the way we did it. But next week, it's 6 weeks in gaming!
Yeah.
Woo!
How you doing, Madelyn?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I've weaned off Belatro a little.
Good to hear.
We'll see what happens when it's just me here.
That's the danger, the danger of gambling.
It is the danger of gambling. But, Monkey Ball, Belatro, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, again, even though Emma already talked about it.
It's great. I love when you talk about things we've already talked about.
So, tune in for that and the many games I'm sure that Emma has been playing.
Yes.
I was almost like, we're done, but we're not done. We have to draw the games.
Yes.
I love to forget to draw the games.
In 2 weeks, for our old game, we'll be talking about Jeanne d'Arc. And for our new game, we'll be talking about Still Wakes the Deep.
Coming in with zero knowledge of either of those games, so I look forward to learning.
Jeanne d'Arc I did have on the PSP.
Wow.
I don't think I finished it.
Gosh, we're in such a PSP era here at Talk This.
I love the PSP. What a system, I assume.
Bring it back. We'll not be talking about the PSP successor at this.
When will Sony announce the Vita 2? That's what I want to know. I don't care about the Switch 2. I want to know.
Probably right after they announce the Switch 2.
Yeah.
Seriously. Competitor.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good business decision.
All right. You heard it here first. Vita 2. Coming to you soon.
Somebody's gonna, do the Apollo Gift of Prophecy meme at Talk This here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's me. Anyway, that's it, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. This week, I hope you could just walk to your subway platform.